That is what I'm talking about. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to day 50 of Adventures of Middle-earth and the Crossings of the Selduin. I apologize in advance for the reggae music playing in the background. It's not very AME, ish. I mean, it's fine. It's just not very AME. But I am at an undisclosed Starbucks on my way back from Gen Con. I am not quite home. I'll be home this evening, actually. And then we'll be back for the duration. I'm not going to be heading back out anywhere until I go to CanCon in Ottawa in October. So I'll be back at home base. But I have one more session that I'm going to be doing out. And so the power of Arvbox has given you this from my undisclosed Starbucks location. I hope everyone is doing well and is looking forward to an awesome stream tonight as much as I am. And I have got the full crew, and we are ready to go with some Wilderland Adventures, the Crossings of the Selduin. Before I get there, just a couple of reminders about ways to support the stream. If you have not done so already, please consider checking out my following the channel, first of all. Please check out the YouTube with the !ArvTube, where you will see past broadcasts of my stream. !ArvCord will get you over to my Discord channel, where you can hang out with the Arvanauts in between streams. Checking out the website, arvaneleron.com, is always a good idea. My Twitter is !ArvTweets. I have finally hit 1,000 followers. I am up to 1,002 followers. It's a big milestone. Very exciting. It only took me 10 years of being on Twitter, but I'm at 1,002 followers. That's kind of cool. So head over there and check me out on !ArvTweets, and please retweet the stream with !tweet while I'm on that subject. On the financial side, !ArvShop will let you get some of the Adventures of Middle-earth material. Soon we'll have Esper Genesis up there. We've got D&D Infinity and Beyond up there as well. So if you want to show your love for any of the fine characters, for Tawny Bear, Robar, Inga, or the River, you can, or of course Stone, naturally, or Lillimon, you can do that by checking out !ArvShop for details about that. As far as other financial ways to support the channel, we have got the Patreon, which is sitting at $3.24. Would love to see that get north to $3.50 and beyond, because it'll be cool stuff for the channel and cool stuff for you individually. That's !ArvTreon. And last but certainly not least, the sub button. We are sitting at about 52 subs, I believe, as we speak, maybe 53. So if you're able to jump on board and sub to the channel, get those emotes, that is also a help. Now, schedule-wise, I have put together the calendar, and most of it's going to be in a similar place. We're going to start today, though, with Adventures of Middle-earth, and then at 4 p.m. I'll be over at GOG with Pen and Pixels and doing some Pathfinder Kingmaker. And then I'm going to have to double-check, because I honestly don't remember and don't have access to, at the moment, the calendar, although I think, let me see, if we can just do the... my 20 bot followers, is that what it is? All right, let me see. Let me take a look and see what this... Oh, I can't do that. No, I can't do that because it messes up my display capture. Yeah, so you're gonna have to just check in and see what the calendar is. We will have a lot of cool stuff for you planned this month with tabletop and stuff like that, but I haven't had a chance to access it all because I've been away. Also, the inspirations for today are not updated yet, so because I haven't done a stream since August, so well, I guess I did a stream on Saturday, which was the live D&D stream, but I haven't done anything else like that, so I'm going to have to update inspirations and things like that coming soon as well. On Friday, one thing that I will do, depending on what I've got going on, is I'll try to do a retrospective of Gen Con as soon as I can. It was definitely a great time. I'll talk a little bit about what I found there and cool things and all that stuff, so I'll talk about my experience of that when I get the chance, but it's not going to be today, because we're starting late because I had to find internet and get stuff set up, and it was difficult. So, but we are now here and ready to go, and I am going to unmute myself so that they know that we're ready to go, and then I'm going to unmute them,
our conversation,
and then I'm going to head over to them right now. There we go. Now, what is this about erudite funding? What is this? What is this that just happened?
We're totally having a completely innocent conversation about representation in the media. And,
Okay, yeah. I totally believe this. I find this is extremely this is extremely believable in every conceivable respect. I totally buy this. But it is my spectacular crew of the Adventures of Middle-earth group, which is here and back and ready to go, because we have a conversation to have with a certain prominent a prominent person from the Tales. You might have heard his name. He might be a wizard. We'll see.
Rudolph? Rudolph, right?
Yes, it's Rudolph. Yes. It's actually Dumbledore. They're going to get a chance to talk to Dumbledore today.
Oh, man.
Well, the guy from Star Trek, interesting.
Yeah, exactly. But it is a great pleasure to welcome the amazing Adventures of Middle-earth crew back with us. I just saw them a week ago, and I have them back again, which is lovely. And so I'm going to jump down without further ado and begin with the man, the myth, the legend, a person who should need no introduction, but I'll give him one anyway, and that, of course, is Mr. Trendane Sparks. Trend, how are you? How's life, the universe, and everything? As I correct your window, because you're a little low here, but I'll fix that up right now. How are you, and who are you playing?
I'm tired. I'm doing okay. I'm still in my pattern of just having a series of naps instead of actually sleeping. And I'm getting a little bit tired of it, no pun intended. But on the plus side, my most recent narration for the Escape Pod podcast went up on Thursday.
Yay.
And part 2 of that comes up on this coming Thursday. So that'd be fun. I think this is the longest piece I've ever narrated for them. They split it into 2 parts.
Wow.
It's like 11,000 words, so I think that's technically a novella. What is the?
It would be. I think it goes novelette and then novella, so that's probably closer to novelette, I'm guessing. Yeah. But it would be, pretty close either way.
Yeah, because a lot of things.
The novelty.
And then there's a novelty, yes. That's the...
Which is what I usually do, around the 3,000 to 6,000 words, typically. But this one was like 11.5, so a little bit longer. But it was a lot of fun. I really enjoy doing that thing. And aside from that, things are... Can't think. I've been watching a lot of Matthew Colville's Running the Game series.
I saw that thing you posted in Discord. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but
yeah, I know. Oh man, it's one of the most recent ones I was watching was Killing PCs. I'm like, yeah. And everybody's like, why do you want to kill your PC? I don't want him to die. I just think it would be helpful to the party if he altered the composition a little bit and maybe add a healer.
Wow.
Anyway, we don't have a healer. It's, not really. Whatever. So, yeah, I'm playing Tonnebear the Hearthminder, who is a Beorning scholar, a master healer, who is currently standing in the middle of a crowd being incredibly self-conscious because the last time he was on these fields, really, he was just being a right prick to everyone around him. But he's pretty content that he's very well disguised because he's wearing a mask which was purchased for him by the river, but the mask's probably a little bit small. It's probably like this big.
It just covers his nose.
Right. It's like anytime he opens his mouth too far, like his jaw. So.
No, I'm sure she'd have picked a mask that actually fits his face.
It's probably a bear.
It's the superhero thing that as long as you put just a little circle over your eyes, you're completely disguised.
Just a pair of glasses.
Yeah. Right. With a fake mustache, and then he disguised his voice. Hi, I'm the Hearthminder.
Right, exactly.
If she put down a gold piece for those masks, they're gonna actually fit your faces.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably made out of balsa wood or something really, really soft, so that's very, very quick and easy to carve. It's not going to last very long. Somebody's going to toss a beer in his face and it's just going to melt like cotton candy. It's going to be great.
Suddenly he's Dark Man? Like what? It's like...
Well, no, sorry. That was RoboCop. Never mind. So I don't start, quoting Arb's favorite movie scene of all time. We'll just drop down to Will.
Good. I'm glad that we're going to do that. Always a pleasure, Trent. Of course, Will is with us from Encounter Roleplay, a sex icon on all sorts of levels, apparently, as we found out, just more every day, pretty much. Yeah. How you doing, Will? How's life, the universe, and who you playing?
Doing good. Life's great. And I will be playing Robar Staunton, the Ranger, in disguise, because he's actually a king of the Eagles.
Really? The Eagles need to know this, I think.
The Eagles aren't even aware of it yet, but soon it will be. He's on a diplomatic mission from God. No, to
Alderaan.
Yeah, to try and get some food and supplies for his people, who I guess right now are maybe starving. They're living off foraging and the like. So we're gonna hope that King Bard is a good old buddy of mine and will help us out. But maybe even Gandalf, let's magic me up some food here, Gandalf, so we can make it happen.
Yes, because Gandalf is going to figure prominently in how all this lays out. Yes, absolutely. Well, it is always a pleasure, of course, to have Will with us. Thank you, Will, as always. And moving right along, of course, we also have looking very flowery, I think might be the way to describe it.
I just wish I wasn't punk rocker,
So instead, flowers? Okay. And that, of course, is our good friend Terry Toons. How are you, Terry? I see you finally left the Netherlands. You finally left them behind, and you've returned to your home.
Forsaken lands, horrible.
Who goes there?
Swamp people. Hi, I am very tired, and therefore I'm gonna be a bit late. Already drank like a whole pot of coffee, so maybe that helps. Maybe I'm just gonna have to run to the toilet every 5 minutes instead of getting more awake. But yeah, other than that, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm back home since last night. Germany. So yeah, that's that. I'm playing Inge, daughter of Ida. She is a dwarf, and Stone Mason, Wanderer, Rusty Pony Sidekick, and Lilleman. And maybe today will be the big homecoming, which I thought wasn't gonna happen last time, but
yeah, we will see.
the festival.
It's definitely on its way, one way or the other. It's going to happen. First, you have a certain individual that you have to speak to, who's sort of prominent in the world of Middle Earth. They'll have to talk to first, but we'll see that homecoming is on its way. And then last but certainly not least, of course, is at the very bottom of the column, of course, also wearing a flower in her hair. So we've got, 2 out of 5 of us with flowers. And that, of course, is Amal Elmatara. Hello, Amal. How are you?
Hello, I am okay. I am beginning to be consumed by incipient Worldcon travel stress, but that is still a little bit in the future, a little bit days from now. But yeah, things are okay. Things are cool. What has been going on? I'm just doing a lot of work trying to get ready to go to Dublin, and there's a lot of stuff to finish in the meantime, like columns and reviews and things like that. I feel like there was something important to say today, though, besides the fact that Toni Morrison passed away in the morning.
Yep.
I think it was that. I'll say this at the end. But just other people have book birthdays and stuff, and I want to talk about them. But
okay.
In the meantime, I am playing a character called the River, who is a woodsman of Roscovel, and she and her faithful Houndstone, I think, are going to be very excited to meet the person of note today. She's a warden, a fighty bard, has axes. Recently has learned how to throw an axe. With some reliability. That's cool.
That's right. That was during our the AME crew goes to the festival part of our last session. But what's up, Koal Man? And
festival.
That's right. And as far as killing the party, I mean, listen, I'm just the messenger. I just call the shots as they happen. It'll be up to them. But it's a great pleasure.
The party? What?
Yeah. Who does that? Who really kills parties? But I am very much looking forward to the session. It should be a lot of fun. Let me set up a little bit for where we are. Again, I will apologize for those of you coming in late and are wondering why the hell there's reggae music blasting. I'm fully aware this is not really Tolkien. This is what happens when you're in an undisclosed Starbucks. In fact, let me play at least the music here to try to partially drown that out. Rivertown, Medieval Town. Okay, there we go. All right, so...
you don't know. It could be a medieval town we're staying in. You don't know that.
Yeah, it's It does not seem to quite fit the nothing against reggae, it just doesn't quite fit. Anyway, but we are here, of course, in the town of Dale, south of Erebor, near Esgaroth, celebrating the 5th anniversary of the Battle of the Five Armies and the defeat of Smaug. And this festival has been it's been banging. I think it's fair to say. There's been a lot of people going on. You've got musicians, you've got merchants, you've got various street fair type characters wandering about, and the party, which was invited there for various reasons, or came there for various reasons, either to represent their people, or because they had been summoned there, in Inga's case, to speak to King Dine, or because they needed to support the party even though they felt really uncomfortable about it, like Tawny, and so forth. Everyone has their own reason for being here. And as the party is here in Dale, they've had a chance to see the number of people sort of gathering together for this particular event. The party, during our last session, had a chance to kind of go out and sort of, have a little bit of fun, kick back, do an axe throwing competition, which unfortunately they were not able to win. There was a song singing competition, which also were not quite able to win, but they got to meet the very famous Alan Adale, who was like, no joke, like that guy was super legit and gave the river some nice feedback, some good pointers, basically. But the point is they all had a really good time doing this, and the river managed to do some busking, and so made a little bit of money for the party, and then purchased these masks that are being used for this particular event, which is this big opening ceremony and then a masquerade ball, which is happening tonight as a part of the ceremonies here regarding the Battle of the Five Armies. King Bard himself came forward to speak to the assembled crowds about the experience of having fought in this army and about bringing all these people together, and the fact that everyone is standing united. And Gandalf the Grey, at the end of our session, Gandalf the Grey himself appeared and came forward with this sort of display of fireworks, and then walked forward to greet the party, said that he had heard that they had met with his good friend and brother Radagast the Brown, and has now said that he has some things with them that he wishes to discuss. And so as I now hand things back over, or I guess set us back in the present. The party is standing here. Bard has just given his speech. The initial sort of celebration ceremony is over, and before the masquerade ball begins, Gandalf is standing in front of you, ready to speak to all of you. And so Gandalf stands there, and looking down at him, you can see that the sort of appearance is exactly as you've been told about him. A gray cloak, this gray hat, long white beard. You can see hanging at his belt he has both a mug and a long pipe and what looks like a tobacco pouch. Below his cloak, you think you might catch the flash of something. Perhaps it might be the metal of a sword, but it's not very clear. And of course you don't want to kind of be impolite or anything and kind of lean forward and do that. And of course his ever-present gnarled wooden staff. And as he is looking at all of you, he says, "It is a pleasure to see you all, my friends, and we have much to discuss. I hope that I might have a few moments alone with you to speak, if you have the time."
Yeah.
Yes. River will step forward, and if there's I don't know, is there etiquette for greeting wizards specifically?
Don't hit them.
Don't comment on their punctuality or lack thereof.
Exactly. They always arrive exactly when they need to. Yeah, so not necessarily, except for the idea that there's always a sense of awe about them. I mean, you, of course, River, grew up being very familiar with Radagast, but Gandalf is considerably more imposing than Radagast. Radagast is always, he's obviously one of the wise, but he's always got animals around him. And Gandalf, you get the impression, whenever animals are around him, they probably spend most of their time just being looking at him admiringly, you know what I mean? Like he doesn't, and so he looks at you with a face that is, I would say stern, certainly not cruel, but I think stern would be the way to put it. And so there's not any particular etiquette. There are not that many wizards, for one thing, other than just great reverence, probably.
Mm-hmm. I forget? Did he actually greet us by name or just? Like,
He did greet you by name,
did?
indeed.
Yeah. All right. So River just sort of steps forward and inclines her head a little and says, "Master Gandalf, it would be our honor to speak with you for however long you wish. Perhaps we might repair to somewhere more private."
He nods and he says, I do not have a great deal of time, but yes, I agree that privacy would be of some value. Perhaps this way. And he gestures back to the sort of this great tent. There was this procession of nobles that I think I may have mentioned to you that came by through the front gate, and there was a large sort of tent that's obviously, Starbucks. There's a great tent which has been set up obviously to accommodate a lot of those nobles and things like that. At the moment, it doesn't look like there's a lot of people in there. Although, as he sort of gestures for all of you, Tani, you can see, all of you can see, but I mean, Tani, you notice in particular that there are many of some of the people that you yourself would have seen on the battlefield at, the Battle of Five Armies, who are all standing there in their regalia and, the whole 9 yards. And Gandalf kind of gestures to go into this tent.
River kind of looks around and wait, we're all wearing our masks right now?
I know Tani is. I don't know whether, I assume that you all are, yes.
Okay, cool.
I think so, yeah.
Right.
Except for Gandalf, who is very much not.
Right, exactly. And if we're in a private, yes. Okay, never mind. Okay, no, that's good. River just kind of takes stock of the situation and readies an excuse for not taking off their masks if they should need to at any point. But yeah.
Okay.
We'll just follow into the tent.
Okay, so when you enter the tent, there are a few guards, two guards standing outside that sort of bow respectfully as Gandalf passes by. And when you enter the tent, you can see that there is indeed a great deal of finery in here, cushions and chairs that are velveted and all sort of like the lap of luxury type of thing, and many fine tapestries and things like that sort of around the inside of the tent. And there is also a table with a glowing light in the center of it. And as Gandalf comes in, the light glows a little brighter. And Gandalf, almost to himself, says something like, "Oh, there's no need for that, really," and kind of waves his staff, and the light sort of drops, like lowers a little bit. So
even the light is excited to see him.
Yeah. And so he comes over and sits down, and the chairs, such as they are, there are chairs all around it, but the chairs are fairly low. And I imagine Robar and Tani and River, you probably wonder a little bit about this until it occurs to you that the chairs are definitely the height of what you would expect dwarves to need, halflings to need, not just obviously humans. Tani, you do notice that there don't seem to be a lot of chairs that are sort of quite Bjorning sized, but there are ones that would probably support your weight if you need them. And so Gandalf sits down in one of the one of the chairs and gestures to have all of you sit down, and he says, also, I think it's probably dim enough in here and concealed enough that there's no need of masks. I understand that they disguise in both directions, and he kind of looks at you with his piercing gray eyes, Tani. He says, but I think you need not worry about others outside of our conversation hearing or seeing us. And he waits.
Ingrid takes off her mask and sits down, like not right in front of him, but just like, a bit to the side, because she's a bit intimidated.
Okay.
River basically waits to see what Tawny does, because if he's not going to, she'd rather not make it weird by having him be the only one keeping it on. Sorry, massive thunderstorms are happening all of a sudden.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Tease me some more.
Sorry. Oh my god, they're really loud though.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So Tawny is going to sit in one of the chairs. Is my staff over here? No, it's not. So he's gonna basically sit in the seat. It's like his knees are now like way up above his hips, and everything.
Yep.
And so he's like got his staff sort of leaned into the crook of his shoulder, and he's got his hands wrapped around it. I think actually Gandalf sat like this once, but he's just sort of looking at the ground, but he's not taking his mask off. But it's almost like he looks as though he's almost trying to curl as much into, his space to shrink down and be as unnoticeable as possible, regardless of what Gandalf has said.
Okay. All right, then. Oh, that's why it's doing that. Okay. All right, give me just 1 second then. Just want to make sure that I... Wow, okay. All right, it's a display capture issue. Okay, and that will solve the other problem, right? Yep. Okay, so, right. That's fine. I'll move this over here. Like, down like that. Okay. In case people are wondering what I'm babbling about,
Oh, I see the capture issue.
yeah, there's a
Did Will vanish?
how do I describe
Yeah,
it?
no,
covered
yeah,
his camera.
he was like, yeah.
So give me
Oh, this is so
just-
cool and disorienting.
Yeah, what's happening is I have to do this in a particular way because it doesn't, otherwise it doesn't pick up stuff that it's supposed to properly, and sort of a long explanation as to why. So,
Well, while this is happening, I don't know, should we pause or should I continue?
sure,
Or-
you can
Entertain
do
the
that.
crowd.
Yeah. So River is like River is looking around to see if there's any way that, like, just kind of at a glance that Tawny could sit in a different place or something if he wanted to keep his face hidden, but not saying anything about that. And just as she's looking around, says to Gandalf, Master Gandalf, I hope you won't take it amiss if we leave our masks on. We don't intend any disrespect, but we also have our reasons for wanting to keep them up.
And so he sort of looks at you for quite some time. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to skip the map for the moment because it's just going to take too long to fix. I'll deal with it later. We're not going to need it for now. So he says, he sort of looks at you with some kind of intense expression, I guess might be the word, and he says, of course, it is not really the masks that you are most concerned about. You cannot disguise yourself from what is within you, I think. And he again looks over at you, Tawny, and every time he looks at you, you feel like he's looking right through your mask, like it's not even there, and he's just like, but I recognize that it is sometimes of comfort to imagine something different about oneself. You wish you may leave the masks on. There is perhaps no concern to people outside this tent. I hope, however, that we can have some truth within it, at the least.
Of course. What is it that you wish to discuss?
And so he takes a moment and sort of looks at all of you and then says, I have spoken to Radagast and conferred with him about the events recently within the land of Wilderland. And I am concerned about the true nature of this spirit that your company last saw on the Dwimmerhorn. You told me something of the chain that you found, and I am concerned. I wish to know more about what it is you know of this spirit, and based upon the discussion we have, it may change the way things move in the future. What did you see of this thing? What did it feel like? He says that "feel like" with a lot of intensity.
River looks to Inga and Tawny as the ones who were most interacting with that chain, and kind of gestures for them to continue.
I need to look at my notes for that.
It's an excellent question, Gandalf. Let me find out.
They give an accurate and heartfelt description of the thing that happened months ago.
So like, oh god, sorry, I kind of zoned out there. I did warn you guys, I'm super tired. Could you please repeat the question?
He wants to know. He says that he wants to know about the nature of this spirit that you saw. How did it feel? What did it look like? That sort of thing.
The chain on the door horn.
The like corpse thing, right?
Yes.
The glowing green chain
Yes,
around
yes,
the
yes,
sarcophagus.
yes, yes.
And if you have presumably if you have other things to tell about the spirit, the shadow that you felt or whatever, I'm sure he'd be interested in that too.
Oof, that was so long ago.
But your dreams, I mean, you're still quite shadowed, right, Inga?
Yeah, she is.
So, and that mostly dates to the like being trapped in the dream too, right?
That's where the real shadow began to affect her, I would say.
But the dream was before the fort. I forgot the name of the fort. Drummerhorn.
Yes, it was before the Drummerhorn. Yes. That's when you were
okay.
dealing with Aramay and all that stuff.
Yes. I really don't remember. Describe the...
Because we snuck around and went in through the doors pretending to be part of the...
Yeah. Like,
Tawny
I don't
was-
think Inga had, like, a good look at the chain at any point.
Didn't. The one that got the best perception roll on it was Tawny.
Oh, okay.
And
Well,
Well,
Inga
he's
is,
looking
like,
at all of you, so...
Yeah,
you know.
and River is like basically looking between the two of you, going, and if it takes a second, she'll go, Tawny, I think that you got the best view of it from what we said before.
if oppression... Oh, we lost Will.
No.
If oppression and containment and imprisonment could be given physical form and magnified 100 times, that would be the feeling that I got from this chain. It far more so than simply keeping a sarcophagus closed. It bound whatever was within it in ways that are a bit beyond my ken. Yes, thank you. I heard it. Shut up!
Gandalf waits as a bolt of lightning.
It was just so thematically appropriate.
Sure was. That's why I didn't say anything.
I have a question first. Like,
Sure.
How did we learn the name of the chain again?
Radagast told us, because we relayed this to Radagast.
Because I have like the name of the chain written down, and I do not remember how Inga learned that information. So.
Right, yeah, Radagast had told you about it, and I believe it was actually Tawny who was doing the lore on it. I think it was Tawny that was trying to figure out more about this chain, right? Trent, I think.
And that it also had something to do with Smaug's father.
Yes, that it had bound Smaug's father at one point.
Yes.
But again, the chain and also the spirit. And so Gandalf nods slowly after, as if not totally surprised when you're finished speaking, and he says, I had heard of such things in the past and seen them but long ago. And he sort of strokes his white beard and then says, "And it was all simply a physical manifestation. What of your dreams, though?" And at this, he stares right at you, Inga.
Inga looks very uncomfortable upon that question and seeing him stare at her.
Mm-hmm.
And
he does not pick up on any given social cue and stop staring.
Inga starts to what do you call it when you start playing around with something?
Fidgeting.
Fidgeting. She starts fidgeting.
Yep.
Really hard, with her beard, one of her beard braids, and then she starts telling about. Then she goes. Well, I mean, it was very long and I'd say colorful dream, but that doesn't describe it.
He says, then what does describe it?
I mean, I could go into detail now.
Please
but
do.
I guess it. Oh. I wish you hadn't. Well, we woke up in. Oh, I don't exactly remember.
It was a dungeon.
No, I think we were brought into the dungeon. We didn't, were right away in the dungeon where we.
Right, you didn't begin there. That's
No,
right.
we began in
We were being taken to the dungeon.
We began in a village. We were trying to defend a village. And
Yes, that's correct.
And it was overrun. River starts talking just because, to try and fill the gap. And by way of explanation, turns to Gandalf and said, "We all dreamt the same dream. We were taken control of by some wraith or spirit that while we were traveling with an elven lady named Irame, and
when you say that word, by the way, when you say Irame, that name, his eyes kind of widen a little bit below his bushy, wide eyebrows, and he nods, and then he says, "I had heard tell of her passage. All right, go on."
She had asked us to accompany her, to escort her to the Misty Mountains, and sorry, I'm so distracted by the music. But
so I'm really sorry. I wish it wasn't.
No, it's all good. It's all but we went to sleep at the site of the ruins of a village, and when we woke up, or seemed to wake up, we awoke in the village as if it were still there and full of people, and then it was attacked by soldiers serving some dark lord.
In red.
Yes. And we fought as best we could, and then we were captured and taken to this foul dungeon where...
Which dungeon?
Do we know the name? Do we know that it was...
Oh, yeah.
Dol Guldur.
And he leans back slightly and then says something, still stroking his beard, and says nothing, keeps listening.
And while we were trapped in this dungeon, it was us and I think there were two others. There was a man and a boy, and the feeling of the darkness around us, even besides everything else, besides the torture and the terrible surroundings, it was really as if despair were just all we could breathe, and it was crushing us, and we had to keep on trying to resist beneath that. But Tanya, I don't think you were affected in the same way that we were, but...
When River mentions a boy, Inge, visibly starts to get even more uncomfortable. And, for those who can read her very well at this point, which would her friends be, she obviously looks like she is, trying to hold back, some tears here. Because that was really painful for her.
It was horrible! It was so horrible!
Well, his name was Haleth, right? Just making sure.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. The other one who was there was the bard, right?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
right. The bard who you kept thinking you could maybe bring onto your side, River, and
Yeah.
sort of didn't have the courage or whatever to go along with it.
Yes, that's right. He joined with them, like, yeah. And that was just it. And as River's remembering, Tawny wasn't affected. Tawny kept telling us it was a dream, but we kept feeling like it was so real. It was more real than any dream that I've ever
Gandalf
experienced.
holds up a hand and says, Tawny Bear, how did you know it was a dream?
Just felt like a dream.
He said, I'm glad to hear that you had that feeling, but I'm curious where it came from. Did something speak to you, or did you feel something on your skin? Exactly what gave you this feeling?
Before we met the river, there was a period where we were on the slopes of the eastern side of the Misty Mountains, near a marsh, and having finished probably my time at the watch, I laid down to go to sleep, and there was a dream which came to me, in which I was out in the marsh being pulled down into it, consumed by it. And there was a presence, a sensation, a will that was driving this to happen. And on the one hand, it felt intensely real, but on the other hand, it also felt disconnected, that it was simply a very bad, very intense dream. Probably not unlike the dream, and pointing at the river, that you had with the trees, the strangling vines. But there was, I'm not sure I can put it into words, beyond it just felt not real. Not quite.
He nods and he says, when you felt that this was not real, did you have to fight to feel it? Did something resist you?
If so, it was, for me, not as intense as it was perhaps for the others. I had far less difficulty retaining that feeling that it was just a dream.
The thing that we kept finding was that it was their goal was not, when we were trapped in this place, was not to get information from us or even really to to press us into labor. They kept trying. It was almost like a seduction. The worst part, like that they wanted us to join them, that they wanted us to see that on the one hand there was the dungeon and the pain and the terribleness, and on the other side was joining them. And it felt like a false choice, but also like there wasn't any other. And so we kept choosing to stay in the dungeon we did not all choose that. At least there was one man who left to be with them.
Were any of you tempted to join them?
No.
And he looks at Inga. He says, "And you?"
Tempted? No. Not at any point. I'd rather would have died.
He nods. He looks at Robar and then at Tani again, and he leans back and he says, "I see. How did the dream end? Do you remember?"
And then like Inge is like audibly starts to what's the word, like swallow? Choke up. Yeah, it's like
The boy Halus, who was with us, chose to go to his death rather than join them. And something in that choice tipped something, and we became aware, I think, of Irame striving against this shadow and fighting.
When the river says it, like Inge just like stands up and leaves the tent.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
She calls after going, Inge.
I'm gonna talk about that in just a second. Yeah, Nonstop, I mentioned before you came on that the inspirations are not updated. You do have an inspiration. I'm still not home, so I haven't had a chance to. Inge, when you get up to leave, Gandalf sort of looks up intensely, and as you sort of turn to start to walk away, and he says, "Inga, daughter of Ida, leaving the shadows do not cause them to be abandoned. I will bring you some light, but you must look into the fire directly, not run from the shadows it casts on the walls." And he has this very intense, it's not even so much that he's looking through you, it's almost like he has this, this force of will that is kind of sort of saying, he knows what he's doing, is what it feels like.
I'm assuming that Inge has seen Gandalf in person before, he probably has traveled back to the Erebor on more than one occasion.
I
right?
would say so, yes, although probably you wouldn't have met him directly because you would have been too
no,
young.
not like that she, the way that, in the beginning of, the way that Bilbo knows who Gandalf is, not that he met him.
Right, yes, for sure.
Just,
for
because
sure.
He showed up to celebrations.
For sure.
It sticks out like a sore thumb.
For sure.
How
dare you call me a son? No, I'm just kidding.
Sore thumb.
Surely you just call me short. Inge has obviously heard all the tales of Gandalf and how he basically helped give her parents and her people their home back, and that her people owe Gandalf basically everything, or a lot anyway.
Yep.
I wouldn't say everything because you know how.
No, not everything.
Centered dwarfs can be.
Sure. No, not everything. But a lot.
So, Inge stops. Doesn't turn around yet. But after a moment that isn't actually all that long, but it kind of feels forever. Mm-hmm. She turns around. First she goes, and then turns around and walks over to Gandalf.
And he
just looks at him, but visibly, she isn't crying, but you can tell that she would start crying any second if she would let him go.
He kind of looks in your eyes, and then he sort of kind of looks almost as if he's peering above them almost, and then sort of these fathomless gray eyes of his that are sort of looking into yours. And then he leans back slowly and he says, "You have been surrounded by a shadow, Inga, but the shadow has not consumed you yet. Think of light, not darkness. We will create more of it here." You can remove a shadow point, Inga. You feel this kind of like this sort of weight lifted, and as you see this, by the way, as you folks are River and Tawny are looking at a distance, from like surrounding as they're sort of looking at each other, you see what looks almost like the wear light on the top of his staff, just brighten almost imperceptibly, but it definitely gets brighter as he's sort of looking into Inga's eyes, and then he sort of puts a hand out. He doesn't touch her, but he sort of puts a hand out and then pulls it back and leans back slowly. His shoulders maybe sag ever so slightly, and he says, "So then, you have encountered him in your dreams?" What?
Like after Gandalf tells.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, if you want to react to that, you can. Sure. Sorry.
Like Inga still doesn't feel great, obviously, but visibly, her shoulders start to sag down a little bit. She looks a little bit more relaxed.
Yeah.
And then she says, "Thank you, Tharkon," and goes back to her place.
And he nods solemnly, and he says, "So you have encountered him in your dreams with the elven princess Irame. You have felt his presence on the land. You've seen him in the chain." And he nods and he says, "This creature that you have encountered, I call the Gibbet King." And he says, "This is a dark tale for dark times, my friend, but it's a tale that must be told. And I give it not to wish or shadow upon you, but you must know what you face, for you will encounter it again, and soon, unless I am wrong in my guess. Many years ago, I myself dared to pass the doors of the Necromancer in Dol Guldur for the second time, to secretly explore his ways. What I discovered on that occasion is not a matter that I will discuss here, but suffice to say I found the place to be even darker and more oppressive than before. It seemed to me that a new power had allied itself with the Necromancer and ruled the deeper pits of Dol Guldur. It was there that I found Thrain, the father of Thorin Oakenshield, wandering witless and near death in the blackest dungeons. I came too late, and he died before I could help him. But with his last words, he uttered the name of his jailer and tormentor, the Gibbet King. I fled that accursed place before the Necromancer could spy my presence, but I knew that my visit had not gone unnoticed. I felt the eyes of that dreadful lord of prisons upon me. The Gibbet King saw me, but seemed content to let me go. Since that time, I have pursued names and places, and can find little of value. All is fragmented and legendary, and those who know of it are loath to speak of it. This creature, this lieutenant, the Gibbet King, half spirit, half shadow, lurks in the darker places of the world, but his presence has grown here in Wilderland. I have felt it in the way the rivers themselves move. Radagast has told me he feels it from the animals to whom he speaks. And I have spoken to the wise and to the simple. All of them feel it equally upon them. Whether this shadow is sign of something greater beyond it, I cannot tell. But even as it is, it poses a grave threat to the people of Wilderland, and there will come a time when all will confront it. I cannot protect you from dreams. I cannot conceal you from darkness. All I can provide you is a light when other lights go out. It is the light of knowledge. He seeks to prey upon your weakness, your despair, your belief that nothing can be better. He is wrong. They are always wrong. Do you understand, River, and he looks at you, that they are always wrong when they say that there is no different way that life could be, that all will be shadow? Do you feel the wrongness of it?
I do.
And he says, and you, Tawny, do you feel how your own pursuit of your past, your self-doubt, your self-hatred, is an echo of that shadow? He wishes you to give into it. He wishes you to feel it. But it is also wrong. What you have done, you have done. But you must not live in that past any more than Inga must live in the shadow of her dreams. And he kind of stares at you, Tawny, as if whether he's waiting for acknowledgement or just kind of like, you know, like giving you the stare down is unclear. So you can react or not as you wish.
He's still kind of staring at the floor.
Okay.
River looks at Tawny as if it's actually, I mean, admittedly, she's still wearing a mask, but
Right.
as if it's very important to her as well that Tawny, like, take this to heart. And almost as an afterthought realizes that he too is wearing a mask, and so just, like, reaches out a hand to touch his and squeeze it.
So Gandalf sort of looks at that and nods at the action and nods slowly and says, "Only together will you overcome this thing. I think," and he leans back a little more, "I think this darkness of which we speak has probably been invested in the actions of many of those who have caused problems for Wilderland. No doubt the one who called himself the Bandit King, or perhaps the one who threatened your sister and Black Tom, Robar. Vigland himself would not have had the wits to come up with this on his own. The Gibbet King, I think, is behind most of this. And when you confront him, you will either remember the truth of your own lights, or you will fall sway to his shadow. You must hold on to what is, and not to what he would have you perceive what is. He speaks lies. You must hold on to your truths, by, in part, holding on to each other. A fellowship, if you will." And he kind of leans back and sort of holds his staff, and he says, "I will not be able to stay for long. I must speak more with Bard and Dane, and then I must be off and see if I can gather more information about what is. In the meantime, I will leave it to you to handle this as you see best. But if you would have my counsel, I would ask you not to remain hidden in the shadows. You must go forth and confront what exists. Shadows, remember, cannot stand to the light."
As Gandalf's been speaking, River has just been, like, sort of trying to contain herself from just going, "Yes, this!" throughout, and just, like, sort of inwardly vibrating with a sort of desire to continue to live up to these things, which she has felt and thought and said, but to have them confirmed by someone like Gandalf feels sort of searing and like a call to action at the same time. But she's also, like, kind of trying to contain this and be aware of her companions, and so just kind of, like, nods at Gandalf, but meets his eyes as she does, and feels like just wanting to convey the depth of her agreement and understanding, even without that kind of effusion.
He nods and he says, "Good. Then, before I leave, I think perhaps some reminders of this meeting may be of value." First, he reaches inside his cloak, and the first thing that he hands to you, Tawny, is what looks like a wooden box. Fairly, probably not that tall, but rather wide. And he hands it to you, and he nods and he says, "You may look inside if you wish."
Yeah, he does.
So when he opens, when you open the wooden box, you see a beautiful and beautifully preserved honeycomb. It is absolutely symmetrically perfect, and there are little bits of honey that you can see in each, cell, essentially. And Gandalf pauses and says, "This honey is taken from the bee pastures that stay high in the misty mountains, beyond where Beornings even themselves have seldom wandered. Here the bees have grown large and fat from lack of predator and time and sun and plenty of water and flour. If you use this honey within any of the cakes that you make, I think you will find they will be more efficacious than your previous versions. And perhaps they will remind you of who you wish to be now, not of who you were in the past." And as he sort of sees, as you're still sort of looking at it, he looks to Robar and he says, "As for you, having been somewhat silent, as if not even present during much of this meeting," no, he says, "As for you, I bear only this, a gift from your sister." And he holds out a pin which essentially looks like a beautifully inscribed S, and there is a crossed sword and shield underneath it. And he says, "She has discovered this in your ancestral home. A brooch, your family's coat of arms, I believe. There may not be any others like it, but then there are few of the Stauntons too. Be the best of who you are. Your past, perhaps, will strengthen you." And so Robar does whatever he's going to do with it, which we'll find out when Robar returns. Then he looks to you, Inga, and he says, "For you, I have something which I hope will not bring you grief. It is intended to strengthen, not weaken." And he hands over what looks like this little chisel, basically, like designed for fine stonework and carving. But you sort of catch when you see it, because almost certainly this is the chisel which you thought you had lost when you left Erebor, which belonged to your husband. And so he hands you that, and he says, "I do not know how much of him," and he doesn't say who it is, but you obviously know, "remains in this. But at least you can remember the best of what he gave you. A portion of his love may be found within this. May you bring that forward to others." And he gives you the chisel. And
Like, Inga just holds it in her hands and looks at it wide-eyed, it's and that's the second where she cracks and now she starts crying. But it's not a sad cry. It's
well, right. He says not all tears are an evil,
The straw that broke the camel's back type of prayer. Now, the floodgates are, she doesn't bawl her eyes out.
Right.
Too much emotion. It's to get out somehow, and she's just you see, we call that, I think that's something in English too, crocodile tears. Just
Yeah.
Crocodile tears are like fake tears.
In German they aren't. In German, crocodile tears are.
In German, crocodiles are truthful and kind.
No, in German, crocodile tears is when you cry without your face showing a lot of emotion, basically.
Oh, so it's just tears falling down your cheek.
I got you.
That's so interesting. That's different, but yeah.
She's standing there, just wordless, tears running down, and she's I don't know how you got these, but thank you, and just sits down, puts the chisel down before her on the table, and keeps like during like what follows, I assume like she's gonna like keep turning it around with her hands and like looks at it from every side and just like looks at it like lost in thought,
Yeah.
obviously, and like obviously like wipes her tears away. Just
Yep. And he nods and again turns finally to you, and he says, "As for you, what would a woodsman of Roscabel desire most? Perhaps in a weapon, perhaps a shield, perhaps boots to run faster, or a cloak to draw closer, or something for your strength of arms." And he shakes his head. "But for some reason, I think none of those quite fit so well." And so he draws forth from his cloak the same gorgeous loot that you were looking at, that you were like, "I would love to buy this thing." And it's the same loot. And he hands it to you, and he says, "There are those who say that music is a fool's errand, and that we need now weapons, not items of storytelling." And he stops and then he says, "Those, of course, are fools who know neither the importance of the weapons they wield nor why the songs we sing matter. You will need to sing well in the days to come, River. I hope you can do so."
Point of question: was
Yes.
it a lute or was it a harp?
Sorry, a harp. I beg your
It's a
pardon.
harp.
I beg your
Okay,
pardon.
okay.
Sorry, not a lute. My bad. Sorry.
It's all good.
No, but it was the harp though that you
Yeah.
wanted, and that was Sorry,
Yeah.
the harp.
And
And I mean, like, it is like,
yeah.
oh my god,
Yeah.
it's like the best harp. Like, no
No,
joke.
she's just kind of speechless and like awed by it, and takes it and like just sort of plucks a single string to hear it sound and closes her eyes.
As that note goes off, by the way, you can hear it now. You're inside a place with a bunch of tapestries and like, everything, so it should just be dead immediately. But instead, the note actually rings out and echoes through the tent, and you can almost feel it kind of growing a little bit in intensity. And for Inga and Tani and Robar, who do not have their eyes closed, you can see again the light on Gandalf's staff, increases in its intensity, almost in resonance with the note. And when the note finally dies away, he sort of stops and he sort of nods slowly and he says, "Such notes purely played linger in our memories far longer than they do in the air." And he sort of nods slowly and he says, "And of course, I cannot forget these either." And he hands out to you, Inga, and to you, River. Inga, to you, he hands what looks like a set of reins that are designed to sort of fit on a horse, except that these reins are exceedingly light. And he says, "These are made by craftsmen from far away, elven craftsmen. And this work you will find, these reins will never slacken when you wish them to. They will never pull upon Lilimon cruelly. They will sit much more lightly on his back. And while you have them in your hands, he will always understand exactly what you wish, even if you speak nothing to him." And then she says to you, the River, she hands over to you, this, what basically looks like, essentially this, it's almost like a kind of like a tag, really, but it's sort of a very light, I guess you could call it a collar, but it's not really a collar. It's this sort of light loop, really, and there is a tag on it, and on it there seems to be some kind of what looks like maybe an elven rune, and he says, "It is perhaps the case that stone needs no other guidance other than his heart. But this perhaps will help protect that heart in times of danger and despair. If he wears this, there may be time when something which was intended to destroy him will instead be turned aside." And so basically this tag that is designed to go around his neck.
Oh, River looks actually more affected by that even than by the harp.
Then by the harp, yeah.
And is just like, and takes it. I was assuming Stone is actually there with them.
Yeah.
But
he doesn't put it on Stone. I mean, he gives it to you.
So she takes it and just kind of puts it around Stone's neck.
He looks very solemn, by the way. Stone does. Like Stone is just kind of like, very like dramatically regal. He doesn't want to move at all as you're putting it on.
And she puts it on, and she strokes him with like just unspeakable fondness, and looks to Gandalf and says very quietly, "Thank you so much, Master Gandalf. A gift is always welcome, but more precious than that are gifts that build up the people who we wish to be and show us the people who we could be. Thank you."
He nods and he says, and you hear outside the tent the sound of possibly recorder and flute and lute playing outside, and he says, "It appears that the ball has begun, and I must depart." He says, "I do not know when we will meet next, but until we do, may the memory of this meeting sustain us, and may you all find, past, present, and future, the light that you seek. If you find more of this Gibbet King, beware his treachery, but do not stand away from him or cower. Only confidence will approach what is necessary to deal with him. And for my part, I will discover what I can." And he stands and looks down at all of you and nods and lowers his staff, and for just a moment the light on the staff sort of flares very brightly, so you all have to kind of like almost sort of shield your eyes for a moment, and when you open them again you see the flap of the tent closing as he is exiting. And indeed, you hear the sounds of revelry, music and revelry coming outside as we speak, with musicians outside, and so there are calls for everyone to come forth.
River just sort of looks at her friends and just kind of is speechless for a second. And I think just actually stays speechless for a second and just kind of exhales quite loudly. It's like,
since Will is currently not here, but I think I know what Roba would do right now. So if you don't mind, I'll take that.
Yeah, lay it on me.
Okay, so basically, because Roba and Inga are basically BFFs, so I'm assuming that Roba would walk over to Inga and ask "Hey, are you all right?" And then the two of them would hug it out.
Aww.
I think that sounds right.
I'm assuming that after a moment, Inga would be okay, wipe away another tear, put away the chisel and the reins, and be
be all right, that's enough.
Yeah, no. She would be okay, so I guess we are gonna go now.
I guess so. River looks at Tawny and says, "Just, you doing all right?"
No.
Oh, and then Inga's "Oh, wait a second," and starts rummaging through her backpack and gets out a candied apple that she promised Donnie way earlier when they were alone in the hotel room, and walks over to him here maybe this will help.
Is it covered with lint now?
No, it was wrapped in paper or something.
Delicious lint.
This is high quality Dalish lint.
Tier 1 lint. Top tier lint.
And he looks at it and he laughs a little bit. It's kind of a very soft chuckle, but it seems more like the kind of chuckle that somebody who's really, really depressed would give because they felt they were supposed to. And sort of like a kind of a yeah, thanks. Now leave me alone, kind of chuckle. I mean, you can tell that he appreciates it, but he's just really, he's kind of lost in his own thoughts right now. And I mean, he takes it, and he's got the apple and the box, but he keeps looking towards the tent flap, and not really moving much.
River says, Tawny, if you aren't ready to do this, we won't ask it of you. If you want to go back to the inn, then you should go.
I intend to. I appreciate all of you doing your best to help me through this. It's just I will be fine when we get away from here.
When we do these things, there's no obligation on your part to be restored to good humor. We do them because we care about you. And what you are going through is not something that anything I or Gandalf or Inga, I think, can fix with words or candy apples, even though that looks like a very delicious apple, Inga.
Well, she probably got like, she probably got like one for everyone. Like, I'm assuming that like already ate theirs, like earlier. Oh wait, no, like River, you were there when she bought them. So like I'm assuming that everybody, like that all three of them like got one already, and like she then picked up the one for Tony.
In which she'll say that even though I can certainly confirm that is a very delicious apple, but we do these things because we care, and there's no shame in, not feeling rallied by them or anything like that. You don't owe this to us or to anyone but yourself. So if what you need to feel or what you need to endure is something that you need to do away from this celebration, then that's all right. But we're here for you regardless.
So, I assume that means that you folks then are going to head out into the ball with Tawny heading back towards the inn, if I understand what all just happened. This is a good reset, by the way, moment to say welcome everybody to day 50 of Adventures in Middle-earth Wilderland Adventures, the Crossings of the Selduin. We were joined by the full crew, but Will is having technical problems. I hope he will be able to get back with us shortly. But otherwise, Trendane, Terry, and Amal are all with us, and I am on the road still, so I am wrapping up my trip on the way back from Gen Con, which was awesome, but so I'm in an undisclosed Starbucks, which is why we have the very not Tolkien-esque music playing above us at the moment. So, but if you like what you've seen here, please follow the channel, check out all of these lovely people and their various endeavors and things, and welcome. And we'll be going for about another 45 minutes or so here, so continue to enjoy as we go forward. So Will reveal himself. Yes, yeah, Will revealed. Just Will by himself. It's a separate skill.
I really, really wanted him to do that at the games.
Yeah, we were really, I know. It was just like, it would be like, it's such a waste, but so beautiful. I mean, so perfect. Like, really, just so perfect. In any case, all right. So when all of you leave to head off together, except for Tani, I do want to point out that when you go outside, there's song and dancing happening. Everyone is enjoying themselves. Just about everybody is wearing masks for the most part. You do not see any sight of Gandalf, but you do see King Bard talking with Dane, apparently, and some others. And there are a number of actually dwarves and elves and all these sorts of people, most of them wearing masks. And there is one that you see who is this huge Bjorning, bigger than you, almost as big as Bjorn himself, not quite that big, but pretty big, who you seem to vaguely remember having seen him before, but he has not been in the sort of land of the Bjornings for a long time. As far as you remember, he actually left and went east of Mirkwood and has not returned from Mirkwood, or from this area since that time. And you can see that he is standing there. You actually don't even see his face. You can just see that he's wearing, and this is how you know him, a visored steel helm, because he was always very interested in in war. I mention this because after the Battle of the Five Armies, both of you kind of went in different directions. You knew of him, and you, as we talked about, went west, hopefully trying to forget about all this. He did not. He actually stayed out here. And so you have not seen him since then, but it's up to you in terms of what you do, if anything, about it. But I wanted to note that he is present at these festivities, and he's hard to miss given his size. So, yeah. Are you going, by the way, so you're going straight back? Are you just going straight back up to your room and then just, to kind of sit and think, basically, Tani, as I understand it? Okay. So, for the rest of you, when you bid goodbye to Tani and the rest of you are standing there, Inga, you see...
Before Tani goes, though, River is going to give him a huge hug.
Okay.
Like a very tight, very, thorough hug, and then let him go.
He's very stiff in that hug.
Inga kind of feels awkward after the thing with because he obviously didn't appreciate the gesture with the apple, so she feels kind of awkward. Just sits there and awkwardly looks at him don't know what to say, obviously, so doesn't say anything at all.
Okay.
Just nods at him.
I assume Robar just kind of grunts at him, Okay, and Tani heads off. Robar and Inga and River, as you sort of turn back to the rest of the dance, all of you notice there's many people here. I do want to point out that there are two what look like sets of musicians in particular. One is a group of elves, and they're playing this very beautiful lyrical music, beautiful strings and wonderful flutes, and it's all lilting. And so you see, Inga, you catch sight of a group of dwarves that are sort of chatting with each other, and they're almost kind of like, you can't. It's almost seems like they're getting up to something, and then you see a bunch of them whip out instruments and start basically playing away. And let's just be clear. The dwarven version of music is very different from the elven version of music. So if you can imagine the elves kind of doing this folk style, are you going to send, right? And the dwarves are just getting on, I lesson, so there's some weird, It actually kind of works as sort of a mashup, kind of, but it's definitely essentially kind of a rock battle, essentially. And you can see the elves sort of half rolling their eyes but kind of going along with it, whereas the dwarves are kind of doing this thing, cracking up, elbowing each other and all this stuff. And one of them in particular you recognize, Inga, because this person is wearing a dragon mask. It's a red dragon mask, but this is a very large dwarf. Now I have to be clear about the large. I don't mean tall. I mean,
he's very fat.
Very fat. In fact, there are only a few dwarves, and probably only one, that you think would actually fit the definition of the great or the fat.
Does he have a drum?
He has a drum. And,
Of course he has a
And
drum.
as he's playing the drum and you're looking at him, you were almost certain that you were looking at one of probably the original companions. And indeed, at one point, he lifts his mask up to sort of laugh with his companions, and it is undoubtedly Bomber the Fat himself,
Yes!
who is just kind of like playing, and so everyone else is doing the thing, and he's just kind of like, let me tell you, and he is a man, like he is come by his nickname, honestly. So he is there, sort of playing with the rest of them. The River, you catch sight of several people, but one of the people that you catch sight of is a tall, gray-eyed man who has oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I actually screwed up one thing about the description. The reason that you saw the Bjorning, that was whose name was Geralt, by the way, Tani, is that he was not wearing his mask. I'm sorry, I got that confused. This character that I'm about to tell you about is wearing his steel helm. Sorry. So this character is wearing a visored steel helm, but he is tall, and you can see that he has a spear at his back and a sword at his belt, and he seems to be right next to Bard all the time. You know, as you're watching, he almost has this sort of, when Bard turns around, you can see this guy is moving around and sort of looking in the same direction. It almost looks like a bodyguard or a captain or a lieutenant or something like that, but he's almost like shadowing Bard, basically, as he's around there. And so he is standing there, kind of, looking around him, basically, but again, he has his steel helm on. You also notice two other ones in particular that stand out. One is someone who is clearly elvish, a kind of young elf maid, who has a bow which seems really, really over large for her frame. It seems like practically bigger than herself, actually, this bow. And yet she moves with a certain grace among the others. She has on a delicate wooden mask that resembles the moon, and you can see her kind of moving with a certain grace around the crowd and the people. And then the last one that you notice, the last two that you notice, I should say, are a guy who is moving around with a mask that, a golden mask that looks like a beaming sun. And he actually comes up to you and greets you and says, Welcome, masters, to the celebration. I am Bannock. It is my great pleasure to be one of the funders, let us say, supporters of this fair. And I am curious, I saw you exit not long after Gandalf the Grey himself. Are you special friends of the Grey Pilgrim?
River steps forward and says, it is well met. I am the River of Rosgobel, and this is Inga, daughter of Ida, and Robar Staunton, etc., his names. We would not go so far as to claim Master Gandalf's friendship, but we are certainly acquainted with him and great admirers.
And he nods and he says, Very well. Even an admirer of Gandalf is to be welcomed at a celebration like this. Please enjoy the festivities, enjoy the food, enjoy the ale, the dancing. This is a moment that we should long remember. How long can the races of Middle-earth remain together, except in memory of moments where they work together as one? And he kind of nods solemnly, and then with a sort of, gesture of acknowledgement, moves away again into the crowd. And you see him actually...
One quick question,
Sure,
sorry.
yeah.
I'm so sorry I'm having just a kind of brain dissolve moment. What is our objective at the feast?
Well, you were... I don't know that you necessarily had an objective. You came to be part of the ceremonies and then to speak to various people, which you'll be able to do presumably after the ceremony. People like Bard, Dane, people
right.
like that.
But specifically, to get aid for I'm thinking specifically of like Robar's.
Right. Robar's trying to get aid for his people that were just,
Right.
devastated by the situation with Vigland. He wants to get that from Bard. Inga was sent to speak to King Dane for several reasons. One of them involving, like, hopefully getting some help for the Woodsmen of Mountain Hall, but also to sort of speak to him about dwarven craftsmen and stuff like that, basically uniting the two a little bit more closely. You, River, I think were sent in part by Radagast, all of you were, but Radagast in particular wanted you to be able to go and speak to them, sort of representing the Woodsmen, and see if you could get other resources and things like that sent to you as well. So everyone going for different reasons.
Okay, cool. That's what I wanted to know. Yeah.
Yep. So, the other person that you notice is this rather odd fellow who is dressed in green and red motley. And you can see him sort of dancing around through the crowd. He stops in front of you at one point and he says, "Welcome, masters, welcome all. A pleasure to this masked ball. I am so happy you are here. For while I am far, you are near. I see the silent one in back, perhaps a Dunedain. Alack, I cannot take his name to tell, but I will find a special hell for those who have no song tonight. Celebration, darkness, light, all of it brought one and all. We are, of course, the Dragon's Fall." And he has this very exaggerated bow, as you look at him, and you can see that he's kind of got this, like, sort of bad loot, kind of broken loot on his back. He's got, like, jingling bells. And you notice that he is not young, clearly a jester, but he's not as young as you might expect some others to do here. He sort of pauses and looks at all of you expectantly. You're not sure what, but expectantly for something.
Is there? Okay. I mean, what I want River to do is to basically thank him for his words and and rhyme back in a way, but I am not sufficiently witty to come up with stuff on the fly. But
Rhyme I can, so rhyme I shan't.
Do you actually say something like that to him? Like, do you make any attempts?
Inga not what you know.
Okay.
Inga just like looks like at him, and like you can tell like the gears in her head start rattling away, but she is not wordsy.
So after a moment, as he sees that you're sort of like smiling but not, he's kind of like, "Your smiles are payment enough, masters, and now I must be away. Slower, faster, my time has come to be away. Until then, I bid you a most pleasant day." And he kind of smiles and grins, and then does one of these things, as he backs away, and begins to do this, like, running from group to group. So you have basically a number of people that you could try to mingle with and sort of join and speak to if you wish. You can also just kind of hang out and wait. You notice that Bard and Dane are sort of off on their own, and are sort of talking rather earnestly, and again with the guy that I mentioned standing right next to Bard. But it doesn't. You get the impression that it's not one of those like, "Hey, what's up, boss?" Like, they seem to be very much not at the moment wanting to be bothered by anybody. But otherwise, there are many things to do and see here at the.
They're talking about the fact that the Count of Monte Cristo found the treasure of Spada.
Exactly.
And they're gonna steal it from him.
One of them is talking about Fortunato, and like it's. I think I found a cask of Amontillado. What? He's an ignoramus. Yeah. Hey, what's up, Echo?
Yeah, Inga, what do you want to do?
Yeah, Inga probably like would want to get wasted because that's what you do. And she already like said that like at the beginning of the day, like, yeah, I'm not gonna say sober tonight because that would be depressing. So she is gonna go find the bar and get a drink, and probably on her way back or even at the bar, gonna get stuck chatting with other dwarves. Like maybe she even like meets like some old acquaintances of hers, depending on how well those masks do their jobs. But like, I'm assuming that like if you have like very good friends or like have known people for a while, that like a mask doesn't do a whole lot.
Right.
So probably is gonna meet somebody she knows.
Is she aiming to try to find someone she knows specifically? Like,
No, specifically not, but like there's a thing like with like large festivals like that, is that you just go somewhere and somebody will start chatting you up, and so that's what happens with her. Like
Gotcha.
she will find company whether or not she wants to. So
gotcha. Okay. River, what are you doing while this is happening?
So I'm a little stymied by. Oh, what?
wait, and also she is probably gonna make Robot drink Dwarven beer, because I'm assuming they can get Dwarven beer somewhere here.
Oh yeah,
Well-
I mean, sure.
Okay, so if that's about to happen, River's like, wait, doesn't Robot have to be? And she whispers this, kingly here. I mean, I'm just saying, it might be a thought to keep our wits about us before meeting potentially King Bard.
Well, I mean, I don't know how, like, you human kings do things, but, like, among my kind, every king can drink more than his own size, so, and still be plenty kingly, so. And with that, she's gone, dragging Roma behind her.
No! So, yeah. River is just like, I want this on record that I think this is a terrible idea.
Duly
Terrible.
noted! She shouts from, like, several meters away.
Okay, so you're dragging Robar away to try some of this dwarven beer.
Yes.
River, besides, noting your
I
comment,
was literally
this is probably
about
a
to
very
say
bad
that
idea.
River, like, that I would have, like, I'm feeling slightly stymied by Will not being here because I was going to have River, like, ask Robar about. I mean, basically, Robar is the one who has any claim here to talking to the royalty, I think, and
Right.
so she was going to sort of use him, just kind of accompany him to doing those things. But if he's just going to go and, be strong-armed into beer, then she's going to look at other people. So rolling her eyes slightly. So who are the people here again? We met Bannock. There's Bard and his bodyguard, his body bard.
But his body bard.
Bodyguard, and who don't seem to want to be disturbed, and is the Bjorning that Tawny saw, is he like actually there?
Yeah,
or?
he's definitely there, and he's sort of he's just sort of there. He seems to have if you look, he's kind of double fisting the mugs. He's got the two mugs of something, so he's got that going on. So he's right there, and then there's also, of course, Bomber. There's the dwarven elven music battle, so to speak. So there's that, and I mean theoretically also the dude, Harrod, who is the jester that you just met.
Right. All right. I mean, if River's been ditched for beer, I think she's going to go towards the musicians. I mean, she's got this shiny new harp, so she, I think, will approach the dueling groups of musicians, and not particularly go to one side or another. She'll just kind of go nearby and unobtrusively try to kind of play a sort of middle bridge between them, as if like weaving together the disparate nature of it. But again, not in a kind of ostentatious way, but in a kind of almost like an exercise for herself that she's getting to know this new harp.
Okay.
But near enough that it will probably be heard. But yeah.
Right, and so as you're starting to do that and kind of link the things together, you can sense that there is really something about the two sort of musical forms that do kind of fit together in an odd way, and perhaps it's just the fact that you have this beautiful new harp that allows you to kind of trace out some of the similarities, but indeed it feels like your instrument is somewhat of a bridge between those two, and you notice after a while that they're beginning to sort of follow your lead as you go through and improvise a little bit and do some other things, and they're sort of following your lead and kind of playing along with you a bit. Yeah, basically, it becomes kind of an extended jam session, and there are people sort of dancing to it. You're reminded a little bit, River, I would say, of your dancing with Ash, before, some time ago in front of the fire. And as you play and sort of link these things together, you can see that both dwarves and elves seem to be enjoying what started as a competition. Who knows, what happened after that? We'll see. And as you do this, Inga and Robar are over partaking of this dwarven beer that is pretty powerful stuff. There is this thing that's called Forge Fire, which is so called. It's said that it has some of the leavings of the forge itself, which kind of gives it its smoky flavor. Whether that's actually true or not is unclear, but this is definitely what you want when you want people to be like, oh yeah, I just had some dwarven alcohol, right? And so
no. Like Inga is like probably like she knows stuff. Like she has traveled far and wide, and like I want to believe that like dwarves, can be a bit of like beer gourmets, as you say.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I'll buy that.
So like
sure.
she will like be like, okay, like she wants the actual good stuff, which is some absolutely obscure brand that only is made by that one clan.
Tell me that brand. What is it?
Let's see. We are gonna call it. Why was I like right away thinking of Hobgoblin? No, wait, it's not obscure. Oh! She is making drink bunch.
Did you say it was? Did you say it was Bunch?
Bunch.
Okay.
Like, of course, anybody who is not dwarven.
How do you spell that?
I will like put it in the bunch.
Oh, bunch.
It's a letter you guys don't have.
Yeah.
That stuff, which is served in these really weird-looking glasses. By the way, # not sponsored. Just putting that out there.
Not yet, right?
No, not yet. Yeah, like I don't even like beer, so I mean, beer's great. These really weirdly shaped tankards, that's what they're called, yes. That are kind of like where the handles are ergonomically shaped. Like it's a bit more expensive, and they put like a lot of what is it called? I don't think there's a word for it. We call that fun.
Is this a hipster beer? Are you drinking
No,
a
that's from
hipster
my
beer?
hometown.
Ergonomically designed, huh?
Hipster beer.
Can't be hipster beer.
Okay.
Everybody drinks that in my hometown.
Also, Death Cab for
Everybody
Cutie
knows.
sucks now that they sold out, right? I just want to make sure I know. Want to make sure I know exactly what we're dealing with.
But yeah, and like they put a fund on the tankards, which is like, you have to like pay some money to get the drink, and then you get like some of the money back when you bring back the tankard. Because
Oh yeah, of course, it has to be recyclable. Yeah, no, I mean, no doubt about it.
because like these are like the special tankards that only come with this beer. And like some people like collect these tankards, and like collect tankards in general. So like some people will just not bring the tankard back and just keep it because it's so funky looking. But yeah, that's what Inga gets, because she was taught to drink that stuff because it's a beer her parents drank, and their parents drank, and their parents, and so on and so forth.
How strong is it?
Like the real stuff, or like in this game?
In the game. And if
Okay,
you want
then
to
it's
take the real stuff and bring it in here,
it's
that's
like,
fine.
It's okay. So like by dwarven standards, it's actually not that strong, but like it's kind of designed to like get a lot of refills, basically.
Ah, yes.
That's how it works, kind of.
Got you. All right, so they do have it, of course, naturally, and they bring it out and serve it in the way that you've described. I guess since it's not strong by dwarven standards, that means it's probably still very strong by anyone else's standards, but it's not devastatingly so. So
Yeah.
I will say that you can start to drink it. We'll talk about what happens when you have more than one of them. As you're sitting there...
Oh, no. She's gonna make him like drink like all the different types of beer. Next, she's gonna make him drink Fuchsian, which... Then she's like gonna do a beer tour.
Okay, I see some con saves in his future. All right. Okay. So that is happening. The music continues to play. Quick check back in with Tani, by the way, before I talk about what happens next. Tani, are you doing anything in particular back in the room other than just sitting and thinking, or are you... And I'm wondering if there's any thought in particular that's occurring to you that's kind of like crossing your mind that you would...
What time is it?
At this point, it's probably about 9 in the evening, probably.
He really wants to go to sleep, just so that the night will just pass and he'll wake up and it'll be closer to time to leave. Just to basically check out and just come back in and be like, okay, we got what we need, let's get the fuck out.
Right.
But he can't. His brain won't wind down. He's sort of absently chewing on the apple.
Mm-hmm.
Does he, out of curiosity, does he sit beside the fire and think of all that he has seen? Of meadow flowers and butterflies and summers that have been? Oh, no, never mind. Anyway.
No.
It's a song from the books.
Aw.
I remember it.
Yeah, you do.
He doesn't know anything about Tolkien.
Who? No.
He? No, he has unbidden memories that keep coming back, and will occasionally pace around the room, and he'll go to the window and look out the window and seeing the lands that, you know, exactly the exact place he doesn't want to be. Well, there it is. Okay, shit. And so he goes back to sitting, and on occasion, yes, staring into the fire and seeing in the flames things he doesn't want to see. So he gets up and goes, does something else, and he looks at the box and thinks about the fact that he's kind of bothered by the fact that Gandalf seems to know what he did here. There's no reason Gandalf wouldn't know. Gandalf was here for that battle too, so it's like so he puts the box down because he doesn't want to think about Gandalf, and then everything he tries to do to get his mind off of what's bothering him just brings it back. So he's not actually eating the apple, but he's kind of absently sort of gnawing on it, if only to get, and this is probably the big part, to get the memory of flavors out of his mouth.
Certain flavors, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Does in the process of doing that, does he ever take a look to the honeycomb? Since you mentioned flavors, you don't have to. I'm just curious.
No.
Okay.
He doesn't open he looks at the box, but he doesn't open it again.
Okay. Good. That seems all very rational. Meanwhile,
Only there were therapists in Middle Earth.
Yeah, that's true. Man, the people in Middle Earth did need therapy. Quite a few of them, for sure. All right. The party has been, I would say, going fairly well. And at a certain point in the party, I would like Inga and the River, and I guess maybe Tani, if you could roll for Robar for me, to make perception checks for me, please.
What? Perception?
Perception.
Perception.
It's perception.
Speaking of Burninator, there is a Trogdor board game that was just released, and I saw it at Gen Con.
We see everything
It's like $60. A little
except
crazy.
for Robar.
Perception.
I'm into that era. Okay,
Yeah,
so
Robar is deep in his cups, I guess.
yeah, Robar's kind of like, I got to review some royalty. And
and he heads for the privy.
yeah, there you go. And then, but actually, Inga and the river both see this. So you notice at one point that Bannock, the man in the sun mask, is going over and speaking to, you actually see him speaking to Herod, the jester, and they're chatting back and forth for a while. And then you notice that Herod seems particularly pumped up, like he's, after that conversation, like he's just, jumping around and even doing more, like, louder music and, like, singing and more poetry and juggling and capering about. And it definitely seems to happen after Bannock had been speaking. Of course, he was way too far away for you to be able to see what he was saying or hear what he was saying, but he was definitely speaking to Bannock. Bannock was definitely speaking to Herod. So, and after Herod has had a chance to caper about and talk more, Bannock himself then clambers onto the stage at the front of where the ball is taking place, the same place Bard and Dane and Gandalf had been, to address the crowd. And he says, "People of Dale," now he's got his sun mask sort of back on his head so you can see his face. "People of Dale, tomorrow there will be a great contest of arms, swords, spears, archery. Let us gather all the defenders of the north and see which of them is the greatest. In honor of this fine gathering of 5 armies, I shall give a prize to the victor. Behold!" And he gestures to 2 of his servants, and they drag this huge iron-bound chest onto the stage, like struggling to pull it onto the stage. And then he sort of looks down at it and smiles, and then picks up the lid and throws it back, and gold and gems literally spill out of the chest like it was overflowing, and there's this big gasp from the crowd, and Bannock shouts, "For Wilderland! For the free folk of the north!" And everyone at this point, half of whom are also drunk, are like, the north, north. The dwarves and the elves, a couple of them who have their arms around each other now, the dwarven and elven musicians, are kind of like, so he grins and smiles. So he...
That's almost enough money to pay for our rooms.
Ah!
Yeah, exactly. It's not quite, but it'll help cover the incidentals. So that's good. But no, it's very impressive, and you can see as the revelry sort of begins to wind down a little bit that there's a lot of discussion now about this contest, like a lot of excitement about what does that mean and how's it going to be involved and blah 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 blah. And so by the time the thing comes to an end, Bard and Dane have already departed, and the impression that you get is that they are going to be available for regular audiences, probably you would guess tomorrow or the next day, but not in the midst of this celebration because they're chatting about all this stuff about things that happened. So, as the ball begins to break up, there's really nowhere else exactly to go except home. But behind you, as you're sort of walking back to the inn, to the Drunkenstone Inn, and to your highly overpriced room, you can hear behind the poetry of Herod, "Masters, mistresses, and all, I am glad you came to this masqueraded ball." And you can see his poetry is not quite at the same level it was before. He might also have had a little bit to drink too much. And "I'm glad that all of you made it here, and it's now that our heads have got to clear." And then, he kind of burps a little bit, and everyone kind of laughs and chuckles with each other. But there's just a general feeling of warmth and kind of, everyone feeling good about themselves as everyone streams back from the ball. Some of them with masks on still, some of them with masks up, kind of walking back to the room. The next morning when you all wake, you notice that Bannock's servants must have been working all night long, because Dale awakens to find that a field has been cleared outside the town between Ravensgate and the river, and you spot posters that are nailed to walls, and they all look like, in fact I even have such a thing, they look like this. Now you folks will be able to see it in Roll20, but for the people at home, you're just going to have to trust me on this, because I can't at the moment show this, unfortunately. Actually, it's not true. I will be able to show it. Let me put that out like that. Yes. Okay, I'm going to put that over there. Okay, and I'm also going to show this to the players. I'm going to show this to the players first. Okay.
Oh.
So there we go. And now I'm going to pop this out so that we can show it to everybody else.
Ooh.
All right, give me 1 second, chat. I will show you what this looks like. He's gone from poems to drunken limericks, exactly. There once was a man from Nantucket. Yeah, basically. Okay.
I don't know of a place named Nantucket, but the guy came from there, and he had
And so I
stuff in
said,
his hair, but the place he was from was Nantucket.
and then I said, bleep it. It was not, yeah.
Well, he just
Okay.
doesn't know what else to rhyme with Nantucket, so he just says Nantucket.
Oh, I can think of something else that he wants to rhyme with
I
it.
can
but,
too, but
yeah,
he
yeah.
can't because he's drunk.
Okay, that would have been a great idea if I wasn't drunk. Okay, so yes, so the poster basically reads, and there are many of these all over the town, and the poster reads, in honor of the day, a contest, archery, strength, horsemanship, a purse of silver for each, and a grand melee, a chest of gold for the winner. All participants shall be feasted and honored. Entrants should present themselves at the contest field before noon. So this is a contest which looks like it's going to basically be sort of a triathlon, right? There's going to be archery, there's going to be riding, there's going to be actual like mock fighting, like this big melee event. It's going to be a big deal. So if you wish, the party may join in on this or may not as they so choose. I don't know if you're feeling good about your axe throwing, experience and you want to kind of join that up. But this is being sponsored by Bannock, and so a lot of people in Dale are getting involved and joining with this if you wish to.
I think what you need to do is just combine everything into one contest. You get a bow, and you shoot the horse, and then you pick it up and you throw it on top of somebody else, and that takes care of everything all in one. No?
No. You have to like lift up a horse, and then like shoot while lifting up the horse. That's how that works.
Right. You actually need to shoot the horse. I mean, not shoot it,
Oh,
but
no,
shoot
the
with
shoot-
it, like it.
With the bow,
Right,
yeah.
with the bow. Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's what you actually do. None of these things are true. So,
So Inge sees a poster and like immediately like side grins at the very hungover Robar, and it's like, so archery contest.
To which I'm sure he's like,
If River is anywhere nearby for this, she's like, well, it's not swimming. So you should definitely take part, Robar.
do you think Rabar would agree to this?
Well, we would need to convince him. That's a problem.
I
Like he's
I
too
really, I sort of feel like Will should actually be able to consent to
To
some of the
decide
things that are happening in his character at this
Sorry, Will, you've got tech problems. That means you become our character. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's probably fair enough. All right. Well, in the meantime, are any of the rest of you going to do any of this? As I said, there is archery, there's horse riding, there are strength contests like wrestling contests, and then a big sort of mock battle. And you could participate in any of these, or all of them if you wish, or none of them.
Inge wants to participate in the archery contest.
Okay, River. are you-
Like she's also like considering like you can definitely tell she's like thinking really hard about whether or not she should also like be in the horsemanship contest. But like the thing is like she doesn't really ride Lilleman all that much. He's more of a pack pony. Like he mainly carries her stuff instead of her, so she's
Right.
not really seasoned. Like
I'm wondering if, like, so I mean, not to be too technical about this and stuff, but what does the horsemanship entail? Because I mean, I presume that River is like a decent horsewoman, but
I will tell you exactly what it entails because you can actually
Right.
see the fields that have already been set up. There's like, by the way, there's like a small army of clerks that are like dealing with registration and stuff. And so one of the field where the horse riding is, you kind of stroll over to take a look at it, and the last set of these straw targets are being set up. And apparently what it is that you must ride by this set of straw targets at high speed and thrust or hurl a spear into the targets as you pass. So it's basically like on the back of horses spear combat is basically what we're talking about.
I mean, I think River has literally done this.
Yeah,
Right?
I think so.
This is okay. So yeah, she'll sign up for
Okay.
that. And yeah, I'm just thinking of like, feats of riding that River has done before. She did ride a deer. Like
Yes,
leap onto its back and stuff.
Yep.
And she yeah. And I mean, like, she and Ash like did some fancy horseback
Yep.
stuff
Yep.
as well. So
No doubt.
are you laughing at something, Tari?
No.
Yeah, you sure? You don't want to share? No, okay. All right.
I'm gonna be like Trendane here.
Anytime that Trent immediately knows what it is she's thinking about, that's probably not a good sign. That probably means like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I love that you guys it just seems like you are mentally adding in bed to anything being spoken.
Well, no, we were talking about horsebacks.
Yeah.
Oh man. If I hear a Witcher 3 reference, I'm not gonna be happy. That's stuffed unicorns. All right.
Anyway, yeah, River will
Okay, so
sign
you're going to
up
sign up for that. Are you going to sign up for the archery? Or because you're asked at the same time, River, like which of the ones you want to sign up for. So you could basically, you got again, so it's the archery, there's strength, there's the horse riding, and then there's the melee, which is the big mock battle thing.
Yeah, she'll sign up for the horsemanship and the melee.
Okay. Tani, are you going to sign up for any of this?
Oh, he's in the room.
Okay, so they're going to leave him in the room while you...
Well, I mean, River will report back to this. Like, I mean, if it's like they've seen this set up and stuff and have wandered out for breakfast or whatever and come back.
Okay.
I'll make sure that like Tawny is aware that there is stuff going on, but not expect that he's going to participate necessarily.
Okay. And then let's see.
She will say though, like since it's the next morning, if they are actually seeing each other and stuff, she will ask, like she'll want to make sure that he's been eating is one thing. So we'll like, and in fact we'll probably like bring him something breakfasty and so on.
Okay. So no more candied apples then. Something more breakfast.
Well, he's
than
only
that.
eaten about a quarter of it.
Okay.
I mean, it's clear that he's been gnawing on it, but he hasn't been eating it.
Yeah.
So it's just, yeah, it's. No.
Okay.
Well, so if River comes back with like a breakfast that is the kind of thing that Tawny would have usually liked, like fucking crispy bacon or stuff like that, then anyway, it's something that she knows that he likes, and
Okay.
and would like knock on his door and. Oh no, they're all like in the
We're
same.
all in the same room.
Yeah. Never mind.
Yeah.
They're all. That's all we can afford. So she'll bring him food and say, I thought you might want some breakfast.
Thank you.
You know, it is absolutely fine if you want to stay here, but I will become a little stern if you're not eating.
And he sort of holds up the apple and kind of twirls it. I'm trying to think of how to describe, like, if you've got a candied apple that was like left in the sun for too long, or like a kid who doesn't have his teeth yet has been like trying to chew on it, and like the candy coating has just sort of dissolved and started to droop off.
I mean,
You know-
if it helps, I can like describe to you like what type of apple she bought specifically.
Well, he's barely gotten into the apple. It's just
No, I mean like the type of coating.
Oh.
Saying. Like, I mean, it's like a butter caramel apple, basically, with like hazelnut, or we call that krokant. I don't know what krokant is in English. It's like when you like bash up hazelnuts and you have like hazelnut crumbs.
Yeah.
Yeah, like covered in hazelnut crumbs, basically. So I'm assuming that like the hazelnut crumbs are gone on one side. And
pretty much. And for the record, that sounds delicious.
Yeah, I'm actually. I want some.
Yeah, I was going to say that Amal mispronounced delicious bacon when she was talking about effing crispy bacon. You mispronounced delicious. It's okay.
Yeah, it's fine. It tastes like salt. Salt is what it tastes like. Unlike if you had the wiggly bacon, which was cooked to the correct,
Tastes like
precise,
heaven.
delicious
Heaven.
wiggly bacon. Anyway, yeah.
So yeah, he's
We're
like,
obviously separated by cultural differences.
one and a border. So one
That's what I mean.
like one side of it, yeah. And one side of it is basically bare, and there's like a bear, and there's been like a couple of tiny nibbles taken out of it, but for the most part, a rat would have eaten more of this.
Okay.
But and he also looks like he didn't really sleep that much at all, so kind of got the dark circles under the eyes and everything, but he just
Okay. So, all right. So he's going to remain. The three of you will go out. So River.
I will just say, like, if like he's, so she will like give him breakfast, and we'll just say, as well. Tawny, is there anything while we're here that will help you? Because I just don't want to see you actually wasting away while we're here. Would it help if one of us stayed with you? Or
no. What would help me is not being here. So the sooner we do what we need to do and we can leave, that would help. The more I am not here. What? Oh, you weren't. We didn't meet you until later. So you were not here when we, Inga, Robar, and I, and I just forgot her name. I had it. Thank you. It was like I had it in my. It was a good. And Rosie when we left. Part of the whole reason that I went with them was to get out of here. The less that I think about and he looks at the apple and he looks at the plate of breakfast. And then he sort of glances towards the fire. Do you know what elf tastes like?
no.
Dwarf?
No.
Human.
In spite of recent near misses there, no.
Orc? Goblin?
I have not eaten any of these things.
I do. Now, if you can hit me hard enough to knock those memories out of my brain, maybe that will help. But part of the reason that I am so driven to heal is because of how much I hurt before. And I don't want to be here anymore. I came at first to support all of you. But the closer we got and the longer we stay here, the more those memories come back. And no matter what Gandalf says, I just want to get back to helping people. And he takes another strip of the coating off the apple and just chews on it, staring. And there's like this look on his face of, oh God, there it is again. That flavor, the memory of that flavor or those flavors. And he's just trying to focus on the flavor of the apple.
River says, I was just like watching this very quietly, and obviously like has known and has like in the past and back when she was staying with Tawny over a while, been aware that he's done terrible things and that and so on, but hasn't actually seen him in the grip of this like this before. And he just gets very quiet and says, I just want you to know that while I don't know what all of those fleshes taste like, and while I don't know what it's like to have to live with the things that you've done, you specifically, I like to think I know the difference between healing and harming. And I want you to know that hurting yourself and healing others are two very different things. And that hurting yourself isn't going to fix anything. That's all. Anyway, take the time you need, but maybe while you're trying to think of different things, the ways that they taste, maybe you should try some of that honey. And then she goes and leaves.
Okay. When you get back to when you get out to the contest grounds, you begin to sign up for these various things. So River, you're going to sign up, I believe you said, for the horse riding. You said that was it, just
the melee.
Then the melee, right.
Yeah.
Inga
she's not like particularly great at wrestling, I don't think, and not particularly great at archery.
It seems like a pretty straight strength thing. The huge Bjorning is going to be obviously signing up for the strength thing, and so that'll give you an idea of the sort of types that we've got there. Inga, you're signing up for the melee, I think you said, and what else?
The archery.
Just the archery. Are you signing up for anything else or no?
No.
Okay, just the archery.
Yeah.
We'll find...
basically, because she's definitely not strong enough for the strength context. I mean, she's not weak, but she's knows that there are Bjornings around, and she's like, no.
Yeah.
This ain't happening.
Okay. So she's going to do that, and then we'll find out from Will next time what he's signing up for, although my guess would be that if he's doing it at all, he would sign up for archery, certainly, and possibly the melee. I guess it depends on how he does. I don't know that he'd be doing strength either. The person who might do strength...
Oh, wait, the melee is different from the strength test.
Yeah. Right. The strength, the strength is basically
battle.
like wrestling, right? That strength is basically like you're inside a ring and you're trying to grapple and throw someone outside a ring. But the melee is like an actual mock battle.
She's also signing up for the melee.
Okay, so that means we got 2 for the melee, and possibly Robar might be there for the melee as well. And then we've got, possibly archery for Robar, archery for Inga, and horse riding for the River. And as you all are sort of preparing for this, and you see the kind of buzz and excitement, Tani, I would say that we have the camera look back at you as your companions are going off to the field, which you can probably still see, I would say, from the Drunken Stone Inn off to the north of town. And as you kind of look out the window, thoughtfully chewing on the piece of apple, you might just be on the reach of your vision. So maybe it's just not really something you see, but you might almost catch what looks like a red and green motley, the sound of jingling bells coming back to you as perhaps Herod also makes his way to the contest. And that, I think, is where we are going to close up our session for today. When we begin next time, we will actually begin with the contest, and things are about to get quite a bit involved down in here as that contest actually happens. I want to actually thank Amal, and I have brought this up with players before, but I want to mention that I always try to make a point of giving the players as much chance as possible to be able to, since the game is about them, to be able to have them interact with it. And I'm glad that, because I was thinking about getting back to the contest, and I'm glad that you paused us for a moment to have that discussion between Tani and the river, because that was very important. And each of you have had a chance to have close interactions. Tani and Robar talking about when Robar was leaving to go deal with his sister. Obviously, Inga and the river inside the tent when they were dealing with, Brunhild and that whole crew. So all of you have had different moments, and that moment between River and Tani was nice, and I don't think there's been a lot between just the two of you specifically dealing with stuff, and so that was very nice. And as usual, a lot of very nice role playing there. So again, I tried to have every mic in the world possibly muted so you didn't have to hear this garbage above me while we were doing that. I will start as per usual at the bottom of the column and work my way back up. So again, lovely stuff today, Amal. We might maybe have, there's a off chance we could maybe have Amal next week, but we're not sure. That's why we wanted to make sure we got in today, because we knew we would have her for today. So what'd you think about today? Where will the fine folks see you next?
I really, really enjoyed it. I really, Gandalf, she's so great. I thought that was lovely. I really treasure the, as much as the rolling dice is fun and everything, I really treasure the whole session that is basically just conversations. And because the last session was quite heavy with rolling for games and stuff like that, right. I liked having just kind of character feelings happening, and I'd been wanting to especially because I missed the session before that and stuff, wanted to make sure that I think of the party, I feel like River is probably Tani is probably the person who River feels closest to, because she has actually spent fellowship periods in his company and stuff like that. And I just didn't want to let this, I didn't want to assume interactions too much between them, because she would actually be really concerned about him all throughout this and stuff. So
yeah, no, you're quite right.
Yeah. So anyway, so just I really, really enjoyed that and really enjoyed taking that that time, and I also just really appreciate the fact that it's also hard to balance the thing that your character would do with the fact that might absent them from the bulk of the game and stuff. So I wanted to kind of recognize that too. But yeah, so I really super enjoyed that. I really was very moved by Inga being weepy and stuff about things, and very intrigued by, I'm sure the fool and his motley is going to be someone important, which I'm curious and intrigued by.
Fools never play a role in literature that matters.
Absolutely not. They're never disguised.
No.
Anywho, yeah. So yeah, I super enjoyed that. I'm delighted with the new harp. I now I love that River has gone from 0 harps to 2 harps.
Yeah, maximum harps. I know.
Maximum harp. She's gonna play. She already wields dual axes. She could play
dual
2
harps
at the same time.
You gotta get one of those ridiculous triple neck guitars, where you put the harps on top of each other and just
Yes.
And then everyone can mock you Dream Theater for being too into yourself. Oh yeah, show off,
Oh my god. But yeah, so I super love that. And happy Stone gets some jewelry. Well, it was really adorable. And yeah, so I super loved that. I thought it was really great. In terms of where people can find me, I'm going to Worldcon in Dublin next week. I'm going to be in Dublin from the morning of the 12th. And just, I'm definitely having a really hard time imagining being able to just have a session while there, just because everything's going to be so time crunched and
Right.
we're going to be doing so much. But after Dublin, I'm going to be in Glasgow for a week, and we're going to head down to London for an event. So I don't know if anyone stream-wise is in the UK, but I'm going to have a signing at Forbidden Planet on in London on August 27th at I think 5:00, and then
I'll write that one down.
yeah, and then later that evening, I have an event at Soho House, which apparently has very limited. It's a ticketed event. There are very limited tickets for the public because it's like one of those weird 18th century members club situations, but also has some. And so, anyways, it'll be a talk about like poetry and stuff at Soho House. The evening of the 27th, I want to say at 7:00. And then in Glasgow, I'm going to have a reading and in conversation event thing with Hal Duncan at Waterstones on Argyle Street in Glasgow. So those are a thing. I also wanted to say, wait, this is the thing I was saving from before. There is a Canada only giveaway on right now for like 3 hardcover copies of This Is How You Lose the Time War. So I'll drop the link into the chat for that.
Yeah.
But it's basically just a Twitter giveaway. I learned yesterday that I have been on Twitter for 10 freaking years. 10 years
Yep, me
on
too.
Twitter.
Me too.
Just so it's a Twitter only giveaway, and all you have to do to enter is to take a photo of like either a red and blue thing or a red thing and a blue thing next to each other. Just have some red and blue in the photo and tag someone in, and you will be in with a chance to win a signed hardcover copy of This Is How You Lose the Time War. So yeah, I think that's about it. Also, you can find me at amal.substack.com and at my website, amal.com, and on Twitter, although I'm definitely needing a hiatus. Like, I badly, badly need a Twitter hiatus right now. So, catch me there while you can. Yeah, that's me.
Always a pleasure, Amel, and yeah, we will look forward to, if not a second time this month, then we'll definitely obviously have you back in September as we get back into our more regular schedule and travel calms down for everybody and all that kind of good stuff. But always a pleasure. Moving right on up the line, I will second what Amel said. Terry, really lovely stuff today with Inga, and yeah, it's been nice because I feel like as the campaign is moving into the, clearly it's in its last stages. Not in a bad way, but I mean, just like, we're clearly, we know, we're moving up to the big bads and figuring out, all that stuff. And as we're in that sort of path, it's interesting to see these backstories really all coming to a certain head that is setting you up nicely for what's going to happen next. We know what's at stake for a lot of the characters now, and it's been nice to see that develop, and I thought there was more of that we got to see from you. Plus, of course, the whole get Robar drunk thing and all that kind of another side of Inga's character. How'd you feel about today, and where will the lovely people see you next?
Well, I mean, it was good for when the coffee finally started kicking in, and I was finally able to form coherent sentences.
Yes.
So that's nice. So sorry about the beginning. I was a bit out of it. But yeah, a lot of fun. And also, I had like the stupidest epiphany while playing, like while we were talking to Gandalf.
Which is?
Why, like, the fact of why he's showing up on a Wednesday for tea at Bilbo's in The Hobbit, because he's based on Wotan.
Oh,
That's interesting.
like Green Wonder.
It's an in-joke. Like,
Yeah,
because,
no, that's interesting. It actually reminds me. This is just having nothing to do with that, but it just reminded me symbolically. I don't know. I think it was Annie Blay posted this. Somebody posted on Twitter about how Toni Morrison was giving this one, like doing a talk or something, and during the Q&A, some guy gets up and he's like, in Beloved 124, does that symbolize? And she's like, no, I lived in apartment 124 when I was young. Next question. And it was like the cut off the mansplain before the mansplain can occur, and sort of, I'll tell you what the symbolism is, you don't get to make it up for me. Anyway, it was kind of funny, and since we were talking about Toni Morrison earlier today, it reminded me of that. So
But like, it would like absolutely make sense for Tolkien to like.
Oh no.
Like,
This is not to say that you're wrong. I think that's actually really cool.
Yeah.
It just reminded me of like symbol. Yes, but yeah.
Like
No,
I
I'm with
never
you.
made that connection as a kid because once upon a time the church in Germany like changed the name of Wotanstag to Mittwoch, like middle of the week, literally.
Right.
So like we don't have that connection anymore with
Yeah.
that one day of the week. So
Yeah, no, that's
like
interesting.
that never clicked with me, but like now I'm like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. Because like I noticed that because like earlier I looked up like what Inge would call Gandalf, right? Mm-hmm. Because like everybody, like every culture has like their own name for Gandalf, right?
Right,
So,
that's right.
and that's when that clicked with me.
Yeah, that's cool, and I think
Yeah.
that's a good theory. I'm here for it.
You're here for it, yeah. What else? Like I also had like a different realization, a lot of realizations after the coffee kicked in. And that is like why Inge and Tony don't really get along. Like because I started like analyzing like the characters in my head, because like usually I just play things by ear. But like in retrospect, it's like kind of because like Inge always wears her heart on her sleeve, and Tony really doesn't. Like he's the absolute opposite
Sure.
in that regard, and that's why they don't really click. And like River is so sensitive with other people, so she like knows how to handle Tony, and like Robar is always awkward, so like that's how like why Inge and Robar get along, because she is able to like handle his awkwardness basically. basically like string her along when she's like super energetic to do stuff, and he's like, yeah, okay, I don't get to say no.
But but I do have to say though, but two similar traumatic backgrounds that that I think can tie them together, although they're different kinds of traumas. They have experienced loss and for different reasons self-recrimination, and so there is something that might remind each other about, remind each other about themselves, basically.
What I always think about with Inge and Tani is like the way that I always read that tension or interaction is that there is a like psychological phenomenon about when someone goes when you know that someone else has gone through the same trauma. There's usually like one of two ways you react to it. Either you react with sympathy, or you react with a kind of like, well, I got through this, why aren't you?
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And like I think that there's and both of those are like, they are just observable, legit reactions that people have, rooted in the same experience and stuff. But yeah.
That's 100% true. And if I may, because I talked about this weekend on a couple of panels about this subject, but I remember speaking to my father about something similar to that with during graduate school. I had one moment where I was like had serious financial trouble because of debt and because I was working a billion jobs, because you don't get any money as a graduate student. Mal knows all about this. And so and I remember talking with my dad about it and basically being like, I don't, this sucks, basically, and my father's reaction was, well, you can do one of two things about that. You can either sort of pull away from other people when they tell you something similar, or you can have that sympathy for your students, and you will have them when they go through the same thing. And I've never forgotten that, because it was really all offering me, totally right, Amal, like completely legitimate either way, but it was offering me in that moment a choice about whether I tried to reach out and empathize or not. And I think one of the nice things about Tani and Inge is that there are moments, I think, where they've been able to bridge the gap, but there's a sort of a generalized sort of like that you just described, Terry, like a disconnect sometimes between the two of them. But it's cool when there are moments that they do reach across that gap, because there are a lot of us that are, a lot of people that are broken people, and that need to reach out to each other for healing, but don't necessarily see it, at least not initially. So anyway, this is why this is an awesome campaign. But anyway, continue, Terry. Sorry, and let me have you continue and finish up.
It's just like so nice to like see like these characters like building up a life of their own, because like I certainly did not plan for any of this with seeing like I had like this like basically when I like come up with my player characters, it's always like I have like this base outline, and then I just see where it goes from there. And it's like super awesome with this game, like to see like these characters like develop so well over the course of like, yeah, it's like been how long now?
Over a year and a half.
definitely over-
I think it's a year and a half, at least. Yeah. So
like that is like super cool.
yeah.
Like especially because like everybody in the campaign like puts in so much character into their characters.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
great.
No, you guys deserve credit for it. Absolutely. Where will the fine folks see you next turn?
Here.
Yes, I think that's true. Well, yeah, for AME for sure, and then for the illustration, probably maybe in 2 weeks. We'll have to talk about that, but one of these Tuesdays it will happen. In August. So, for sure. And where can they find more about you?
Twitter, Instagram, at TariToons. Like have that name on all of the things. Though I'm like not super active on social media, like in the past half year or so. So yeah, there.
Cool. Dig it. Thank you very much. Always good stuff. As always, Derry. It was great. What?
Cool. Dig it.
Cool. Dig it. Well, I figure, I was like, yeah, I have nothing else to add. I was like, it's cool.
Yeah. I did warn you guys at the beginning that I might be a bit out of it. Today.
You did great, as always, and you folks should be following Terry on all of the things. I really am sad that Will ended up having the tech problems because I was really looking forward to hearing more about how he was going to react to this, but we'll get him in next time and he'll be able to start with the whole contest stuff, and we'll kind of get Will back on board. Will, of course, runs Encounter Roleplay, and now runs the Kobold Press Twitch channel because Will is considered an authority on this subject, and he, of course, plays Robar Staunton. So more from Will coming soon, but you should go follow him on Encounter Roleplay and all the things. Last but certainly not least, of course, again, Tren, lovely stuff, and I agree with Amal that it's not easy to sort of absent yourself from a portion of the game and doing it for character reasons, but it does seem appropriate to what Tani does. And it was interesting to kind of see his reaction to everyone around there, including Gandalf and, all of that stuff. And it's a challenge for me to make sure that I'm keeping Tani engaged on his terms as a character, obviously not just force feeding him into something that he doesn't want to be in. So, but I thought it was sort of lovely that I'm really happy that encounter happened between you and the river near the end there. How'd you feel about today, and where will the lovely people see you next?
Probably right back here on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
I think, because I don't think we've got D&D this weekend.
Right, I think it's the Tuesday. I have Saturday. I have to double check it.
I too, because I imagine that probably all the times that the river and Tani have been hanging out, doing whatever they've been doing since they met, he probably has mentioned that like he was just a rabid berserker fighter during the Battle of Five Armies and whatnot, and that he was not a nice person. But I don't think he's ever told, at least I don't imagine that he would have ever told her to that level of detail that he went that crazy.
Because she has seen him crazy. She like briefly when they were when there was the big fight near Bjorn and
the
stuff.
Gloomy Fold.
Right.
That's the one. Yeah. But he didn't try to eat her. So,
no, because none of you tried to hit him. But he's there's an old Steven Seagal movie, and thank God it's old. And I don't remember. It was the 3-word title. You know the one.
Marked for Death.
Probably. But his character is talking about when he was learning martial arts, that he went to his instructor and said that he wanted to learn to hurt people, and his teacher said, all right, I'll teach you, but first you have to learn how to heal people. And nothing else in the movie stuck with me except that scene. And similarly in the there's a BBC version, Robin of Sherwood, which is a much more, Robin is the son of Herne. And,
the 80s one.
Yes, I love that one so much.
I love that. Yeah.
And the sheriff of Nottingham at one point is talking to this herbalist who lives out there, and he's like, you have to know the poisons and the potions. You have to know both of these plants. You have to, because otherwise you're going to wind up killing somebody if you don't. So you have to know both the poisons and the palliatives, I think was what he said. And I was like, you know, it is a balance of knowing how to heal and how to harm. You must learn both of these these plants, both of these schools, or otherwise you're going to screw something up. And then there was another thing, but that's kind of what initially was the entire thrust behind Tawny's design, is that he has spent so much time hurting people that now he's trying to completely almost overcompensate in the other direction. And for him, that means leaving all of this behind, just scrubbing it out of his life, like rotten flesh from a wound. Just get it out, get it gone. Don't, even think about it. And then you can heal. And so the more people keep trying to tell him, this is no, what I need to do is not think about this anymore. I need it out of my life. And so, yeah, it's just, I'm loving this. I'm loving it.
You're that section, and I need, we're going to need to wrap up here because I got to get on the other stream. But I have to say that that reminds me, in the movie Glory, which is a great movie, in the movie Glory, there's a section where they're trying to teach the regiment to load a musket. And there's this thing where they're kind of joking around at first, and I don't remember if it's Matthew Broderick's character or if it's Carrie Elwes's character. I think it's Broderick, who's just kind of like, wrong, do it again, and he gets really angry. And like eventually they're doing it so fast that they're fumbling and like pouring powder all over himself, and he says something to the effect of, if you think that you're going to get a chance to do this, if you're going to get a chance to laugh about this before you get killed in battle, you're wrong. If you think that this isn't going to cost you your friends, you're wrong. And he just goes this thing where they're just like thunderstruck, because this isn't the way that he normally acts around them. And of course, later on, there's a payoff scene where they actually are loading it just that fast because of but that sort of almost panicked rage, that was coming out of it anyway, that reminded me a little bit of that. It's powerful, it's a lot of people forget that this is Tolkien's books were very much stories of war as much as they were also stories of peace, and there was a great deal of, we talked about that this weekend, about landscape and the quest, and about how the landscape of Mordor is brought back to the Shire in the Scouring of the Shire, and the impact that has on the people who went and fought the war, so that, as Frodo says, the Shire has been saved, but not for me. That memory is something I was thinking about watching you go through that trend with Tawny, so that was interesting. In any case, where can the fine people find you besides here, like online and elsewhere?
On
Twitter,
on Thursday, part 2 of Lab B15 will go up on the Escape Pod podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's about it.
Okay, and you will see Trent back here. We actually mentioned Trent a couple times this weekend about voice acting and stuff like that. So, but it was a great pleasure. Love this campaign and this crew. It's a really, really great group of people, and really love how connected everyone is. And it just gives me happiness every time we get to play it. So it was a great pleasure. Can we get some love chat for our wonderful players? And wonderful players, I will see all you folks very, very soon. Thank you to Trendane, thank you to Will, thank you to Terry, and thank you to Mal, and I will see all you lovely folks soon. Bye for now.
Bye, friends.
Okay. It's telling me a new version of Zoom is available. That's good to know. Thanks for letting me know. Okay, folks. So that is going to do it for me for here, but it is not going to do it for me overall, because we do have other stuff that we've got going on here. Give me just a second whilst I get this set up, because I got to get moving over there quickly. Let's transition. Okay, and then let's get rid of studio mode. Okay, and then let's do that, and let's get rid of the intro scroll. Good, there we go. Lovely. Anyway, that was a good time. I am going to be over at GOG in about 6 minutes. I got to go over and get rushed and get ready here immediately. I'm still on the road. I am somewhere in Pennsylvania, but I will be back this evening at home. And then, as I say, I will be here. I'll be home for a while now, up until probably mid-October when I go off to Ottawa for CanCon. So Gen Con was great. A lot of good stuff professionally, business-wise. For those of you who missed it, I had a folder made, or not a folder made, they made a folder of this, Tales and Tomes from the Forbidden Library. So you can feast your eyes on the awesome. It came out really, really well, and for those of you who were there for my live stream on on Saturday night rather, you got a chance to see what it looked like with Beyond the Forbidden Library. That was a ton of fun, and I really enjoyed it, and it was great, and all of you were great, and it was all great. But that all said, I need to rise up on out of here because I have got stuff that I got to do. Why is it not showing? It should be showing this, and why isn't it showing that? Okay, I don't know why it's showing it. Anyway, yeah, it might have. That's right. It might have auto-updated and been out of sync. That's quite possible, Aranel. I don't know, but hopefully we'll deal with that. So yeah, exactly. 6 minutes, no rush. But anyway, you're all wonderful people. I love you all dearly, and I will see all of you wonderful people in just about 5 minutes for GOG, Pen and Pixels, and then I will see you back here on Friday. And actually, while I'm at it, very quickly, let me check because I did the schedule, and I think it's all. Yeah, that's how you spell calendar. Oh my God. Calendar. Yay! That's how you spell calendar. Okay, so that is going to be on Friday. We have D&D with viewers. So we should have Emberwind coming up on Thursday, and then D&D with viewers on Friday. I believe we've got D&D coming up on Saturday the 10th, but I'm not 100% sure. So there's still some stuff up in the air, but I will have that squared away now that I am actually home, or will be home by tomorrow, or by tonight, I should say. So then we'll have all that squared away and good to go and all that kind of good stuff. But that's going to do it for me. Please remember all the things. Follow the channel. Check out the YouTube, the !ARVTube, the Discord, the !ARVCord. Please check out as well the Twitter, !ARVTweets. And don't forget, of course, about the website, arvanellarun.com. Support the Patreon, which you can't see, but it's sitting at $3.24, I promise. And then don't forget, of course, about the sub button. Right now we have about 53 subs or so we'll continue to build up on that as time goes on. Much love to everyone. You are all wonderful people. Thank you to Aradinel and Dragonspear and Terry Tunes for wonderful mod work. And thank you, Terry Tunes, for doing amazing stuff with the playing today. Thank you to my subs, Aradinel, Dragonspear, Terry Tunes, Nonstop, Aaron, the Trendane. Trendane, again, amazing work today in playing. Same thing with Amal, wonderful work as well, Amal. Thank you. Thank you to Angel of Light, Axeman, Commander Root, Ekag, Elva Marin. Thank you to Gorgar, Lurks, Mubat, I guess. Thank you to Marinda, Second Obs. Thank you to Slowpool, Stay Hydrated Bot for always keeping me hydrated. Thank you to Tobik. Thank you to you, Christensen, Uncle Elias, V&K, and Virgo Praz. Thanks, everyone. Much love, and I will catch all of you wonderful people soon on GOG in about 3 minutes. Good God. I'll see you soon. Catch you later. Bye for now. Oh, and be good to each other.